I don't even know what to write. I'm still trying to process what I found on my wife's computer. I was just trying to get a picture she wanted to print for the office, and I found out. Looking forward to seeing you again tomorrow? Same time? Jason's text reads, Yeah. Em will be at work late. Miss you too. Elise's reply reads, Sent earlier today. The house is quiet. Elise is asleep in our bedroom down the hall. She doesn't know that I know. At least not yet. I take a deep breath. At my desk, I open my laptop. There's a picture of Elise and me on the desktop. I close it. I discovered their conversation a few hours ago. It started 3 months ago. Found a package for you on the porch last week while you were on vacation, Jason had written back in September. Hope you don't mind that I grabbed it for you. You're a lifesaver. Next coffee's on me, Elise had replied. Coffee. That was what they were drinking, standing in the backyard chatting. She offered him coffee. How many times had she done that? I had seen them standing back there, talking and laughing, and I never thought anything of it. But now I was beginning to feel like a fool. Had she been doing this for a long time, or was this all new? My phone vibrated in my pocket, and I pulled it out, looking at it. It was a text from my boss. Have you got those files ready for the presentation tomorrow morning? I didn't feel like lying, but I didn't feel like telling the truth either. I said yes, and put my phone away. Another creak from the hallway, and I heard footsteps passing by the door. I minimized the text message screen as if I were at work, and my boss was about to see what I was doing on my computer. Marcus? Elise calls from the doorway, sounding groggy. You coming to bed? I didn't turn to look at him. I couldn't. Just finishing some work, I said, trying to sound natural. Don't stay up too late. You have that big meeting tomorrow. Right, the meeting. With Peter. And Jason. Because of course Jason works at our company too, in a different department. The universe has a sick sense of humor. I hear her footsteps returning to bed, and I let out a sigh of relief. I open a new tab and start writing signs of, but delete it. Signs of what? Signs of infidelity? I already had that right in front of me. I see that Adam from AITA sent me an email, asking me if I have everything prepared for the presentation tomorrow. I should reply to him. I should close this chat. I should do something. Anything. But I don't. I continue to read. I continue to think. I remember the time I came home from work and Jason had brought her coffee because he made too much. I remember the time she forgot her phone at home when she went out for a run. I remember the time when I was out of town for a few days and our security camera on the front porch suddenly stopped working. I open our bank account. I look at our transactions. I see that she paid for a meal at a restaurant I've never heard of. I see that she booked a hotel room and then canceled it. The clock is ticking. In a few hours, I'll sit down with Peter and present our quarterly results, and Jason will probably be there. I open a notepad and write down every time she said she had to work late or go out with her friends. I connect the dots. I see a pattern. I don't know what to do. I want to confront her. I want to wake her up and ask her what the hell is going on, but I don't. I open a new document and write down everything I know, everything I've read. My phone vibrates. It's another message from Peter. Drinks after the presentation tomorrow. Whole team's coming. The whole team, including Jason. Sorry, fam thing tomorrow. I text her back. Family thing. Elise shifts in bed. In a few hours, she will wake up, kiss me goodbye, and leave for work. Or wherever she's actually going. Will she text Jason on her way to work? Will they plan their next meeting while I'm in the middle of my presentation? The cursor is still blinking at me. I start typing again. I want to make sure that I write all of this down, just in case I need it later. A car passes by outside. For a second, I think it will stop, and that I will hear Jason's car door open, but it continues and the sound of its engine slowly fades away, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the sound of my computer fan. I guess I'll find out tomorrow. But for now, all I can do is stare at the blinking cursor and wonder how many other husbands have sat in front of a screen like this, typing out their thoughts and fears, trying to figure out what to do next. I don't know how much time passes before I get out of the chair, but it takes me a moment to register that I'm standing up. I walk up the stairs and into the bedroom, careful not to make any noise, and lie down next to my wife, but keep my distance. I close my eyes, trying to sleep, but I can't. I can still see the glow from my computer screen even with my eyes shut. I turn away from Elise, feeling uncomfortable as I lie next to her. Her breathing feels too loud, too obtrusive. The headlights of a passing car trace a glowing line on the ceiling, and I watch it go by, just like I've done countless times before. I don't know why, But this time, it feels different. I feel like I don't belong here, like I'm not welcome in my own bed. As if to confirm that thought, Elise rolls over and touches my back with her hand, causing me to flinch. The sensation of her skin touching mine is suddenly unbearable. "Marcus?" she says sleepily. "Something wrong?" "No, just work," I say, and it burns to lie to her. "Go back to bed." Her breathing evens out again almost immediately. I guess it's easy to trust someone when you're the one doing the betraying. I pick up my phone from the nightstand and look at the time. It's 2:47 a.m. I have to get up in less than 5 hours to get ready for tomorrow's presentation. I really need to sleep, but I doubt that will happen. I see that I have an unread text message from Adam. "Just wanted to let you know that I've uploaded a backup of your presentation to the shared drive. Good luck tomorrow." I reply, "Thanks, Adam." And then I wonder if he could get a hold of deleted text messages from my company's phones. I doubt it, though. I look out the window and see the orange glow of the streetlight outside. 3 months. 3 months of texts between them. How many times have they met up without me knowing? I try to imagine all the lies she's told me. All the times she said she was working late or going for a run or just stopping by for a coffee. And all the times I believed her. I feel a lump in my throat and a burning sensation in my chest. I want to cry, but I hold it back. I don't want to wake her up. She mumbles something in her sleep and turns her head to the side. I wonder if she's dreaming about him, about Jason. I hope not. I hope she's dreaming about us, about our future together. But I can't be sure. Another text message pops up on my phone. It's from Peter. "I've changed my mind. We're all going out for drinks tomorrow after the meeting. It's not optional." I sigh and put my phone back on the nightstand. "Can't sleep?" Elise asks, looking over at me. She leans over, casting a shadow on my phone. I locked the screen and said, "Work stuff. You're going to do great on your presentation. Peter's a fan of your work." She places her hand on my shoulder, and I resist the urge to shrug it off. "Jason told me the same thing at the neighborhood barbecue last month, didn't he?" My mouth went dry. "He said that?" "Said you were the most thorough person at the company, almost to a fault," she teases. If only she knew how right Jason was about that. "You should try and rest," she says, lying back down. "Big day." I grunted in response, staring at the ceiling fan as it spun around above us. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Jason. He had CC'd me on an email to everyone at the company about the meeting tomorrow. "You awake?" Elise asks again. She sure sounds like she cares. How does she do that? How does she lie so well? "Just had too much coffee," I reply. "I might go read in the office for a bit." "Don't stay." She reaches over and grabs my hand. "You'll sleep better." I wanted to chuckle at the absurdity of her suggestion, but stayed where I was, listening to her breathing slow down as she began to drift back to sleep. The minutes passed by slowly, then the hours. I thought about being back at the office later that morning, sitting across from Jason at a table, watching him smile at me and hand me my coffee, pretending like he didn't ruin my life. I glanced at my phone and saw that it was 3:33 a.m. I decided to get up. "Where are you going?" she slurs, and I realize I'm not as quiet as I thought. "Getting water. Go back to bed." I stopped at the door and looked back at her. Was she lying? I couldn't tell. I left the bedroom and went downstairs to the kitchen. I felt uneasy being alone in the house. Now that I knew there were things I didn't know about my wife, it felt like there could be more secrets hiding in the shadows. I felt my phone vibrate in my pocket. It was another email about the presentation tomorrow. This time it was sent to both Jason and Peter. I deleted it, knowing that I wouldn't be able to go back to sleep if I read it. I poured myself a glass of cold water. "Marcus?" I hear Elise call out, and I flinch. She's standing in the kitchen doorway in her robe. "You've been weird all night. What's going on?" I think about confronting her with what I know, showing her the proof, watch her face crumble, but instead I say, "Oh, it's nothing. Just a bit anxious about tomorrow. You know how Peter gets about these quarterly reports." She came over and hugged me from behind. My skin crawled at her touch, and I wondered if she hugged Jason this way. "Come back to bed," she says. "You'll feel better in the morning." I follow her back upstairs, reluctantly. I need to see more of those messages, I think to myself. I need more proof. I need to be sure of this before I blow up our whole life. She gets back into bed next to me, and I lie awake for a long time, thinking about all of this. Eventually, I fall asleep. My last thought is that I really need to take a look at my phone. There's a notification light blinking on it, telling me I have a message. The sun is rising and the cars are going by outside. I must have fallen asleep for a few hours because it's morning now. The notification light on my phone is still blinking, but I don't have time to look at it. Elise is waking up, and I hear her getting up to go to the bathroom. She's going to take a shower, her regular morning routine. The next morning, Elise got up to take a shower as usual. I checked my phone for the time and saw it was 6:15 a.m. That meant she would be in the bathroom for exactly 12 minutes. I had 12 minutes to look through her computer. Maybe I would find something there. A letter, an email, a document. Anything that could explain what was going on, why she was lying to me. I got out of bed and went over to her study. I felt as if the entire world was watching me, as if I was doing something shameful, but I knew it had to be done. I had to know why my wife was lying to me. I couldn't let it go. I sat down by her desk and opened her laptop. "Marcus?" Elise shouts from the bedroom upstairs. "Can you get the coffee going?" "Yeah, sure," I say, lying. I type in the password, our anniversary date, mocking me. I heard the shower turning off upstairs, not much time left. I opened up her email. There were a lot of messages, so I started with the oldest ones and worked my way up. There was a message from Peter, asking her to meet him late at night, and one from Adam, asking her to go out for lunch. I heard the shower turning off completely. I took screenshots of the various messages and saved copies of them. There were emails about dinner reservations and hotel rooms and excuses for where she would be. "Is that coffee ready yet?" Elise asks from upstairs. "I'm grinding it now," I call back, my voice only slightly shaky. I saw a message from a man named Peter. "Last night was amazing. Does your husband suspect anything?" "He's too busy with work to notice," Elise replied. "By the way, make sure he gets that big project next week. He'll be out of town for a couple of days." My boss. He had been in on it all along. I heard Elise coming down the stairs. I opened her social media accounts, reading her private messages and looking at photos of her I had never seen before. "Marcus?" Her voice is nearer. I quickly close everything down and put the computer back to sleep, just in time for Elise to walk in. "What are you doing in here?" she asks. "I'm looking for that file you said we needed. The house insurance renewal?" I get to my feet. "Oh, that's in the kitchen drawer," she says. She's wearing a towel. "Did you put the coffee on?" No, I forgot." I squeeze past her, avoiding contact with her bare shoulder. "I'll do it now." I angrily press the button on the coffee maker and wait for it to brew. "I might be late tonight," Elise says from the upstairs. "I'm having dinner with the marketing team." I check her phone calendar on my own phone. Dinner reservation at La Maison, for 2 people, with Adam. "That's all right," I say. "I need to get back to working on my presentation with Peter." She comes into the kitchen, dressed in a blue business outfit. "You'll do great. Peter speaks very highly of you." I pour up a cup of coffee for her, thinking about how Peter probably laughs at me every day. The gullible husband, making coffee for his wife, completely unaware of the fact that everything is burning down behind his back. "Thanks, honey." She kisses my cheek and I resist the urge to wipe it off. "What would I do without you?" I feel the response stuck in my throat. She put on her lipstick and checked her phone. "Love you. Good luck with the presentation," she says as she leaves. As soon as I heard her leave, I went back into her office and opened up her laptop. The screen came to life and was still open to her desktop. I had about 45 minutes before I had to leave for my own commute. I started typing out notes, taking down everything I could find. All of the affairs, all of the lies, all of the dates and times and places. My phone dinged in my pocket and I took it out. It was a text message from Adam. "Presentation looks good. Want to grab a drink after work?" The nerve of this guy. I couldn't believe it. The whole time he was sleeping with my wife, and then sitting across from me at the bar, pretending like nothing was happening. "Sorry, not tonight," I text back. "Rain check?" The sun is shining through the window in the study now, adding a warm glow to the room. I save my work, and then put everything back the way I found it. Looking around, I make sure that everything is in the same place as it was before. It doesn't look like I've disturbed anything, but everything has changed, I think, feeling the weight of the knowledge I've gained. I go upstairs and get changed for work. Elise is already gone, and as I head out the door, I get a text from Jason. "Ready to kill it at the presentation?" I don't respond. It makes me wonder who else is involved in all of this. How many people know about Elise and Peter? How many people know, but aren't saying anything? And why didn't Jason say anything to me? Was he just being a good friend and minding his own business, or did Peter ask him to keep it a secret? I don't know the answer to any of these questions, but I intend to find out. And now, I have a way to do that. I get in my car and drive to work. I have a plan now, but I need to be patient. I have to play it safe and make sure that I don't tip anyone off. I have to be careful. The morning meeting went well. I delivered my presentation and made my case, and now it's 3 hours later, and I'm sitting in a coffee shop downtown. I decided to take a break and clear my head before continuing. I find myself sitting in a cafe, staring at my untouched coffee. People pass by outside, unaware of the turmoil beneath their seemingly ordinary lives. Adam arrives, smiling as if nothing has changed between us. "Dude, you crushed it in there," he says, putting down his fancy coffee. "Peter's jaw literally dropped when you showed him those projection graphs." I looked at him and wondered if he had any idea what was about to happen. "Thanks for the assist with the tech," I say. "It's nice to have someone you can count on." He laughed and took a drink of his beer. "Friends," I say. It feels like poison in my mouth. I set my phone down on the table, screen side down. "What do you remember about last Tuesday, Adam? Our dinner. At La Maison." He stopped mid-sip, looking at me. "Last Tuesday? You booked the table for 8 p.m. for two." I speak softly, deliberately. "How was the wine menu? Any good?" He went pale. "Marcus, let me explain." "Tell me the truth then, about the lunches, about the late-night meetings, about the computer problems that magically needed fixing at the same time you were with my wife." A couple at the next table looked at us. Adam leaned in closer and whispered, "It's not what you think." "No?" I flip my phone over and scroll through a few screenshots. "I guess I'm misreading your texts with Elise, planning your meetups together." I notice his eyes flick towards the screen for a second. "How long have you been fucking her, Adam?" He flinched as if I'd hit him. "How long?" A barista called out an order, the sound of it feeling oddly out of place given what we were talking about. 6 months, he says quietly, looking down at his coffee. "The company picnic." I remembered that day. I'd been proud of how well she'd gotten along with my coworkers, but now it made me feel a bit sick. "Does anyone else know?" He looked surprised. "What do you mean by that?" "Don't play dumb." I lean in. "Peter? Jason? How many of our coworkers are in on this?" "No one's in on it, Marcus. It's not like that." "Then what is it like?" I ask, raising my voice, then immediately lowering it. "Tell me, Adam. Help me understand why my friend, someone I cared about, would do this." He put a hand through his hair. "It just happened. We never meant—" "Weren't supposed to know," I conclude for him. "Got it." The music playing in the cafe changed to something cheerful and jazzy. It was so inappropriate for our conversation that it almost made me laugh. "What are you going to do?" Adam asks in a whisper. I placed an envelope on the table and slid it over to him. "There is a copy of everything in there. You have 24 hours. A day for what? A day to admit to HR you had an affair with a coworker's wife. To quit and resign and never speak to me again." I look at him. "One of those things. Your choice. By tomorrow. What if I don't?" "Then I'll bring the footage to HR, and with it, some fun documentation about the special tech support you did for a few of the execs." He goes even whiter. "How do you think the board's going to feel about your fabricated server logs? You'd risk your own job just to what, Adam? Get revenge on the guy who ruined my marriage?" I grin, and he flinches. "Maybe. You want to test me?" He stood up quickly, almost knocking his chair over and drawing the attention of more than a few people. "I'm sorry," he says. "I didn't want to do this." 24 hours, I say again, looking back out the window. "Starting now." I listened to him leave, then watched him through the window as he stood on the sidewalk for a moment, holding the envelope in his hand, before he walked off down the street. A moment later, I got a text from Elise. "Working late tonight. Don't wait up." I filed it away with the rest of the evidence. It wouldn't be long before Adam called her, I imagined. They would try to come up with a new story, but this time they would have a harder time selling it to me. "Order up!" the cashier shouted to someone nearby. I took a sip of my coffee and found it was cold. Didn't matter. I drank it anyway. 1 down, 3 to go. It was evening by the time I left the cafe. The sun had gone down and shadows were stretching across the pavement, making it feel later than it really was. It was the end of rush hour, and the roads were clearing out. I drove around aimlessly for a long time, not sure what to do next. After an hour of this, I finally began to head home. The drive home from the cafe felt like I was watching myself from a distance. I was still processing what had happened with Adam as I parked the car in our driveway. Elise wasn't home yet, but she would be soon, working late as usual. I unlocked the door and entered the house. It was empty and quiet. I went down to the basement and turned on the lights. It was colder down here. Fitting, considering what I was about to do. Elise always laughed at my so-called home office in the basement. It was just a desk and a filing cabinet where I stored old paperwork and documents. She never understood why I needed to keep physical copies of things in this day and age. That's what she got for underestimating me. I took out my laptop and the folder I'd been preparing. It was time to gather the evidence. "Let's see what the ethics committee at your firm thinks about this, honey," I say, flipping through the printed email correspondence between Elise and Peter. My phone vibrated with a text. It was Adam again. "I'm meeting with HR tomorrow morning." "Good call," I text back and mute the phone. The first thing I did was scan all the documents into my computer, labeling each file with the appropriate name, just like I did with my files at work. Jason always said I did a great job with that. I heard a car pull up in the driveway and froze, but then the neighbor's door slammed and I realized it must have been them. Once I was done scanning everything in, I opened up the website for the law firm Elise worked for. I found the page for anonymous ethics reports. "To the ethics committee," I type, then erase. Sounds too stiff. "I need to report several breaches." Erase. "I have discovered." Erase. I looked at the form on my phone. How exactly should I fill this out to make sure they couldn't deny it? I wanted to make sure I worded it perfectly. My phone vibrated and I saw another message from Elise. "Have to stay late at work again. Just order takeout without me." I ignored it and went back to the form. After thinking about it for a few minutes, I began to type. "I am reporting a consensual affair between senior partner Peter Sullivan and associate attorney Elise Chen. Attached is evidence of misconduct including..." As I write this, I realize I don't have to hold back anymore. There's no need to censor myself. I can tell the whole story from beginning to end. The business trips, the late nights at the office, the expense reports for dinners at fancy restaurants. All of it was a lie. The furnace kicked on upstairs and I realized the heat was back. For a second I thought maybe she was back home, but then I remembered she was out with her lover. I attached the pictures I had taken from her iCloud account and her emails, which I had forwarded to myself. There was more than enough evidence to prove the affair, and more than enough to get her fired. Peter too, for that matter. I was just about to hit send when my phone buzzed. It was a text message from Peter. I opened up the message and read it. "Actually," I respond, "I think I'm busy tomorrow, and the next day, and the next." I go back to my report, writing more about how he had done the same thing to other junior associates. "Marcus!" I hear Elise call. "Are you in the basement?" My heart skipped a beat. I quickly minimized the windows and opened a spreadsheet. "Just finishing up some work," I yell back, grateful that my voice sounds perfectly natural. "I thought you were ordering dinner?" She's at the top of the stairs now. "Got distracted. I'm saving documents, closing tabs. I thought you had a late meeting tonight?" "It got out early." She's descending the stairs now. "What are you working on?" I closed the final window just in time for her to come down the stairs, still wearing her work clothes, her hair a little bit messy. "Quarterly projections," I lie, pointing to the spreadsheet. "Peter wants some adjustments." "Of course he does." She smiles, and I look into her face, trying to spot any hint of guilt, but I see nothing. "Come upstairs. We'll order Thai." "5 minutes to wrap up?" She nodded and went back upstairs. "Don't take too long. I'm starving." I waited until I heard her footsteps on the floor above me, then brought the report back up on the screen. I filled in the final details, added the necessary attachments, and prepared to submit it. I hesitated for a moment with the cursor hovering over the button. I knew that as soon as I pressed it, Elise's entire world would be turned upside down. Her career would be over. She would be destroyed. More than likely, she'd be going to prison. But after everything she'd done, she deserved it. I clicked submit. A message appeared on the screen thanking me for my submission and saying it would be reviewed within 48 business hours. I closed everything out and made sure I hadn't left any trace of what I'd just done, then put the manila envelope back where I'd found it, behind the old tax returns. "Marcus," Elise calls down, "dinner's ready." "Be right up," I reply, getting to my feet and tidying up the desk, acting as if everything's ordinary. Just another night in the basement office. I'm going to sleep soon. Elise will go to work tomorrow. She doesn't know that it will be her last day at the company. What do you feel like eating? She asks, menus in hand, as if we have any say in the matter. I smiled back at her, feeling like I was eating a bucket of sand. Of course, honey, whatever you want. I stood in the kitchen, drinking my coffee and enjoying the calm before the storm. My wife entered the room, already dressed in her business suit. Already awake? She asks, pulling out a mug. Yeah, just couldn't sleep, I reply, handing her the coffee pot. Still stressed about your projections? Peter seemed ecstatic yesterday. I took a sip of my coffee. Pete's easy to excite, huh? My wife didn't notice the sarcasm in my voice, as she was busy looking at her phone while she poured herself a cup of coffee. Jason got a new coffee maker at work. Maybe I won't have to ask him for his special blend anymore. What a pity, I said. I know you're not a fan of his coffee, but... Her phone buzzes. I watched her face as she read, noting. On Saturday, the barbecue takes place. It's a beautiful summer day, and everyone shows up. I stand at the grill, flipping burgers and hot dogs, while in my pocket is the phone with the evidence I need. Want me to help with the patties? Jason asks, coming over with 2 beers. His usual carefree smile is a bit forced today. Nah, I'm good, I reply, taking the beer, but not allowing him to join me. I saw Elise talking to Peter's wife at the dessert table, laughing at something she said. Adam was nowhere to be seen, of course. After what happened yesterday, I hadn't expected him to show up. Good crowd, Jason observes, remaining in place against my unwelcoming demeanor. Everyone loves a spectacle, I say, slamming a burger onto the grill. The music coming from the Bluetooth speaker near the pool was connected to my phone. All I had to do was change the song. At that moment, Elise came over and tapped Jason on the shoulder. I'm gonna go tell everyone my secret, Jason says, heading back into the throng of people. You're being a bad guest, Elise whispers in my ear next to me. Just want to make sure I don't set this on fire. She reached for my beer and said, Can I have a sip? No, I said, pulling it away. Get your own. Jason would be happy to get you one, I'm sure. She looked at me with a suspicious glare, and I realized I was pushing it. A moment later, she turned around, distracted by one of the kids who was giggling loudly as he chased another child. I pulled out my phone and found the recording I had made. Not just of last night, but of all of them. And not just of the audio from the bedroom. I had recordings of the phone calls, the conversations, the sweet nothings, the whole thing. Peter showed up a little while later, a bottle of expensive wine in hand, as always. He greeted Elise with a hug, and I noticed he held on a little too long. It was infuriating, watching him act so nonchalant. Everyone else was fooled, but I knew what he was up to. The party went on, and people were having a great time. The kids were running around, playing games on the lawn, and the adults were talking and drinking. It was the perfect afternoon, and I could see everyone was enjoying themselves. I passed off the grilling duties to one of the neighbors and went over towards the speaker. I pulled out my phone and readied it. Shall we toast? Peter chimes in, holding up his wine glass. It almost feels meant to be. You know, I announced to the unexpecting crowd, I came prepared for this. I pressed play. The music stopped, and Elise's voice came on. I want you so much. Jason, please. Everyone stopped talking and looked around. Another recording played. Peter, we have to be careful. Marcus doesn't know yet, but... Elise turned red. Jason dropped his beer. Adam's at the hotel, her voice recording says. Come alone. Parents began covering their children's ears, and people began leading them inside of nearby homes. There was no outcry, only the sound of the damning confessions playing over the loudspeakers. Peter tried to go for the speaker, but I stopped him. Something wrong? I asked softly. He breaks character for a moment. Marcus, let's talk in private. Like how you talked privately with my wife. Elise looked mortified, standing by the dessert table in her sundress. Marcus, she says softly, please, just don't. I continued playing the recordings, one after the other. The crowd slowly began to disperse as more and more of them left. You're killing it, Elise says, crying. No, I tell her. I'm playing it. Jason tried to turn it off, but I stopped him. I think your lawn needs mowing, I say. Your wife wonders why you've been ordering so much coffee, I hear. He looks at me in terror as he hears his own voice coming out of the speaker, talking about times and places to meet up. The party is over. Was it worth it? I ask before playing the last tape for them, a compilation of their treachery. Peter was the first to leave. He got in the car and drove away. Jason followed shortly after. Elise was left standing there on her own. She was crying, her mascara running down her face, and the neighbors looked on for a few more seconds before heading back into their homes to gossip about what they had just seen. "The place is yours," I say, cutting the recording. "I left last night." "Marcus, I don't need to hear your voice ever again," I say, grabbing my keys. "Have fun with the food." I left her there, sitting among the leftovers of the party with all her friends gone. Her picture-perfect life in ruins because of me. As I drove away, I got messages from the neighbors, trying to make sense of what they just saw. I turned off my phone and left it in the passenger seat. I didn't want to think about it or her anymore. In the rear mirror, I saw her taking a seat at the patio, trying to get a sense of the damage I had caused. I sat in my hotel room, divorce papers strewn across the desk in front of me. Elise had tried calling me dozens of times since the barbecue 3 days earlier, but I didn't pick up. I had grabbed a few changes of clothes, my laptop, and a couple boxes of evidence, and had moved into a hotel for the time being. Peter's wife had texted me that morning, saying she had filed for divorce as well. I didn't respond. I felt like thanking her for ruining my life, but I knew that wasn't fair. She had been just as much a victim as I had been. The divorce papers had been delivered to me that morning. I had expected it. She couldn't exactly represent me, especially not with the ethics investigation, which was now ongoing into her conduct. The law firm had suspended her pending further review. I looked down at the papers in my hands. They said, "irreconcilable differences," as the reason for the separation. I thought that was a pretty funny way of saying, my wife cheated on me with my best friend. Just then, the phone rang. "Mr. Chen, your wife is in the lobby. She says she needs to speak with you." "No, thank you," I reply. "She claims she has some documents for you to sign." "Tell her to leave them at reception. I'll pick them up tomorrow." He hesitated. "Well, she's crying, sir." "Yeah, she is," I say, and end the call. I go back to reading the divorce filing. My lawyer had done a great job. She included all the evidence I had gathered, hotel receipts, texts, recordings. My phone buzzed again. "Marcus, come on, 5 minutes, I want to talk to you." I start to type a reply, stop, then try again. "If you want to talk to me, talk to the lawyers," I say at last. She was typing, then nothing, then typing again. I put the phone down and went back to the stacks of paper. There was a knock at my door. "Marcus?" Elise's voice sobbing. "I know you can hear me." I hold still. "I've lost everything," she says. "My job, my friends, my dignity. Please don't let me lose you too." I let out a bitter laugh. "You were dead to me the second you picked them," I shout at the door. "It was never about them. They meant nothing to me. It was... what? Just sex? Just deception? Just disloyalty?" A moment of wordless silence passed, except for her crying. "I brought our wedding album," she says at last. "Do you remember that day? How happy we were." I look at the divorce papers, at how she ruined it. "Go home, Elise. We're done here." "We're not done," she yells. "Marcus, come on. Come out here. Look at me. Think about us." I took out my phone and called security. "Yes, this is room 847. There's a man outside my door who needs to be removed." "Marcus?" "No." I heard the elevator ding and footsteps coming towards me. "Ma'am, please come with me." "Marcus," she's crying. "I love you." Once they were gone, I let out a sigh of relief. Then I took out a fresh legal pad and began to write the letter I would leave behind for my wife. "Dear Elise," I scribble, then scratch it out. "Feels too personal." "Elise," I write. That's better. Less warm. The words came slowly at first, then faster. "I gave you all of me, and you used it against me. Now I'll use you against yourself." There was a siren in the distance, but I ignored it and continued writing until I was finished. When I was done, I read the letter over carefully. Then I put it into an envelope, along with the divorce papers, and sealed it up. My phone lit up one last time with a message from Elise. "I'll be at home when you're ready to talk. I'll wait forever if I have to." I blocked her number and turned off my phone. My plan was to have my lawyer give her the letter along with the divorce papers the next day. I just needed to make it through one more night, and then it would all be over. I poured myself a drink from the minibar to calm my nerves and sat down on the bed to drink it. The next day, I left the hotel with the letter and divorce papers in my briefcase so I could hand them over to my lawyer. I asked him to deliver them to Elise on my behalf, and he agreed. The drive home from my lawyer's office is different this time. I don't feel like the neighborhood is judging me anymore. The divorce is official. Elise and I are no longer married. I park the car in our driveway, feeling strange about the way I still think of it as ours. It's just my driveway now. My house. My home. Elise's car isn't in the driveway. She had asked me to let her pack up her things while I was at my lawyer's office, and I had agreed. I still watched my security cameras from my phone, though, and saw her leave a few hours ago. I unlock the front door, and it feels like a small weight has been lifted off my shoulders. Home sweet home, I say to myself out loud. There's a note from Elise on the kitchen counter. It says she only took what she needed and that I could keep the rest, along with her apologies. I don't read the rest. I just throw it in the trash where it belongs. My phone vibrates. It's a text message from Adam's wife. She tells me she's sorry to hear about the divorce and asks me if there's anything she can do. I ignore it. I don't care if people find out. I walk through the house and notice the things that are missing. Her makeup and a few other expensive beauty products are gone from the bathroom. Her clothes are gone from the closet. It feels like a burden has been lifted from my shoulders. When I walk into her office, I see that it's mostly empty. There's a small box on her desk. I open it and find her wedding ring and some photos of the two of us. I close it and leave it there. The doorbell rings. I look through the peephole and see Peter's wife. She's holding a casserole. "I know you're in there, Marcus," she says. "Your car's out front." I think about pretending I'm not home, but there's something in her voice that makes me answer. "I brought lasagna," she says, holds the dish out like a peace offering. "And news." I don't want either. Peter's been suspended while they do some digging. The ethics committee at the firm, they noticed things. I looked at her, puzzled. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you're not the only one who needed the truth. Some of us are just too afraid to do what you did." Tears glisten in her eyes. "Thanks for the lasagna," I say, taking the dish. "I just need some time to myself." She nodded, taking it in. "We're having a neighborhood BBQ next weekend. You should come." "No, no more of those, thank you." She smiled at me, just barely. "All right, take care, Marcus." I shut the door and took the lasagna to the kitchen. The house felt different with that one little act of kindness in it. When I went upstairs, I saw Elise's pillow on the bed. She had forgotten it. I stripped the bed of all the sheets and comforters and pillowcases and brought everything down to the garbage. I would buy new ones tomorrow. Once that was done, I received a text message from my lawyer. "All done. You're a free man. Free man." I let the words sink in for a moment, then walked around the house and opened every window. I wanted to air it out, get rid of the last traces of her. I sat down at my computer and deleted all the evidence I had gathered. I no longer needed it. I kept the audio files from the BBQ and saved them to a USB stick, just in case. The sun was setting outside. I ordered food from a restaurant I had never ordered from before. The delivery guy was new too, probably because I hadn't ordered from that place. It felt refreshing. I sat at the kitchen island and ate in silence. Then I took out my phone and deleted Jason's number, and Adam's, and Peter's. I hesitated before deleting Elise's. I heard a car pulling up outside. A car door was opened and then shut. I heard footsteps from the sidewalk. My heart was beating faster, but it was just my neighbors and their kids. I relaxed. I put the phone back in my pocket. Then I looked around me at the empty house. It felt different now. The sounds were just sounds. It was no longer a hiding place for someone else's secrets. I threw away the rest of the food. I looked at the name of the restaurant on the box before I did. It was a reminder that I could live differently now. I could make new choices. I could find new places to eat. I could start over. Tomorrow, I would change the lock on the front door. I would throw out all the food in the fridge and buy new groceries. I would replace the sheets and paint the walls. But tonight, I would just sit here and enjoy the silence. The night came and went. I poured myself a cup of coffee. It was the last coffee I would share with Elise. She had asked if she could come over to talk before she left town. I wasn't sure I wanted to see.
"All right, everyone's presentations are done," Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me and began to speak. "There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only." "Absolutely right." His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. "I'm leaving." After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick, is something wrong?" Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. "I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime," he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. "To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance." As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. "All right, everyone's presentations are done." "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me. "There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer." He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. "Still here?" Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. "I'm leaving." I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick, what's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. "Probably Sam." Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. "Do you know how much revenue we get from that company?" "We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs. Gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized." Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. "All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason." "What? You're coming with me, right?" I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I immediately followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong. Mike, what have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. I didn't do anything wrong. You're still saying that? Look at him. Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract? Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go. Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him. There's no way he was pushed aside. Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he? I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.